We're going to finish out chapter 11, and it couldn't be more applicable to Passover and to everything that we see happening in the world. This is a perfect message in this time. And so let's finish this out. And some of this is pretty heavy, you guys. This is a pretty heavy message. And it's messages like this. There are times, and I'll just let you in on a little secret. There are times where I'm given specific messages that I get sick to my stomach. And this is kind of one of them. There's hope. I don't want you guys thinking that this is going to be one of those messages that is doomsday and gloom. That's not what this is about. It's absolutely just the opposite, ironically enough. But let's get into this. And this is what we read in chapter 11, verse 32. We read this: "What more shall I say? For the time would fail me to tell of Gideon and Barak and Samson and Yiftach, also of David and Shemuel and the prophets, who through faith subdued kingdoms, worked righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword." Oh, and I love this part. "Out of weakness, they were made strong." Out of weakness, they were made strong. You think, I can't help but think about the Apostle Paul in his interaction with Yeshua as he's begging. He begs the Lord, "Get this demon off of me. He is afflicting me." And Paul kept going back to him in prayer. And Yeshua responds, "My grace is sufficient for you, because my strength is made perfect in weakness." So that goes against all, obviously, logic that the world would possess. See, a common sense logic that the world would possess: strength equals strength. It's that simple. Weakness equals weakness. But when it comes to the Lord, that is not the case. When it comes to the Lord, for the Lord's strength to go forth, he needs brokenness. He needs humility. He needs vulnerability. He needs you hanging by a thread in your life, not being able to trust in the strength of your own flesh or in the wisdom of your own mind or in the riches in your bank account. I'm going to tell you right now, you want to make it in this age, in this generation, with power, you want to be able to overcome, you want to have victory, this is the kind of heart you've got to have. We've got to have this. We got to be broken. We got to be humble. We got to be faithful. We got to be men and women of faith, because out of weakness, that's when we get that strength that will baffle the world and has baffled the world, as I'm going to show you today. He continues and he says this: "They became valiant in battle, turned to flight the armies of the aliens. Women received their dead raised to life again." And you kind of know exactly what the writer's alluding to here. You think of the woman of Zarephath. You think of the Shunammite woman. Both of these women had their sons raised from the dead. Elijah raised the one, Elisha raised the other. This is such an awesome thing. We see all these victories, all this deliverance in Hebrews chapter 11, and they all get this through faith. But then the writer throws a curveball. It's like he juxtapositions a total contrary statement up against this. And he goes on and he says, "And yet others were tortured, not accepting deliverance, that they might obtain a better resurrection." I mean, how peculiar is that? We have all these beautiful stories of victory and deliverance, and that's based upon faith. And then the writer throws this in here and said, but, well, there was also some that actually suffered and they were tortured and they didn't make it. And in a sense, he's alluding to the fact they were killed. And yet both of these require faith. And that is so critical for you to understand. I think of Zechariah the prophet. He carried the same message that John the Baptist carried. Did he get rewarded for it by the people? Did they thank him and bless him? Thank you for bringing us salvation, for turning us from the gates of hell, pulling us out of the fire. No, they stoned him. There was no deliverance for him. This was the thanks he got for it. How did he do that? How did he endure that? I'm going to tell you right now. Through faith. That's how he endured it. I want to share with you two stories, and they're back to back from the Apocrypha, and specifically from the book of Maccabees. And really, these books are recordation of prophecy, of the fulfillment of prophecy, and specifically a prophecy that is mentioned in the book of Daniel, where there would be this little horn that would rise up and he would cause great harm. Well, the book of Maccabees records it actually being fulfilled. And it was fulfilled through a man by the name of Antiochus Epiphanes from the 2nd century, who, and I have said this many times, he is one of the greatest personifications of the evil one the world has ever known. If you want to know what to expect in the Antichrist, you want a template of say, what can we base this coming Antichrist off of? Antiochus Epiphanes is the guy. This is the guy you want to watch for. You want to study this guy because this is what the Antichrist is going to do. Going to chapter 6 in 2 Maccabees, verse 1, we're going to begin here. And this is what we read. Not long after this, the king sent an Athenian senator to compel the Jews, and the king would be Antiochus Epiphanes. He sends a senator to compel the Jews to forsake the laws of their ancestors and no longer live by the laws of God. Look at that. So what this really template of the Antichrist wants to do is to destroy the Torah. He wants to destroy and rip down the commandments of God. This is the Antichrist's heartbeat, if you will. This is what he's after. Verse 2. Also to pollute the temple in Jerusalem and to call it the temple of Olympian Zeus, and to call the one in Gerizim the temple, which is the Samaritan temple, the temple in Gerizim the temple of Zeus, the friend of strangers, as did the people who lived in that place. Harsh and utterly grievous was the onslaught of evil. And so here you have, isn't this interesting? You have the spirit of Antichrist coming in, and he wants to take the temple of God and he wants to flip it upside down. He wants to call it by his name, in essence, according to his God, by a demon, by a false god. Now, this typifies the heart of the Antichrist because we know that the devil tried to take the throne in heaven. He wanted to assume it, and he certainly wanted people and the angels of heaven and all of creation to worship him. And verse 5, the altar was covered with abominable offerings that were forbidden by the laws or by the Torah. And that means they were offering unclean animals, and it was being offered by people that were not to present themselves before the Lord or come near the altar of God. That was reserved for the Kohanim with the assistance of the Levites. Continuing, people could neither keep the Shabbat nor observe the festivals of their ancestors, no so much as confess themselves to be Jews. Now, you've heard me say this before. This is what scares me about this passage. All the things we're reading about are all the things that have happened to the church. I mean, you can't even make this up, where they strip out the seventh-day Sabbath. They want nothing to do with what they would call Jewish. We're not Jews. We don't want anything to do with Jews except for the fact that they serve a Jewish Messiah. It's absolutely crazy. It's frightening to see what the spirit of Antichrist does, wanting to strip the Sabbath, wanting to take away the Torah. Here, basically, what we have the devil declaring total war on righteousness against God's law, against God's truth. And it's interesting because when we actually go to the book of Daniel, what you will see in the book of Daniel, and this is important, especially in regard to the Antichrist and everything that we've seen here, it confirms, but it specifically says that he will cast truth to the ground. He is going to cast truth to the ground. When you see a move, a wave of evil attacking the Bible, that is the spirit of Antichrist. It's the spirit of the devil going forth. And when you see this begin to happen, know this. It's telling you this is a precursor. He's rising in power. In Isaiah 59:14, justice is turned back and righteousness stands afar off. For truth is fallen in the street and equity cannot enter. In other words, we're at a time where the Antichrist, the spirit of Antichrist, has grown strong. Evil is prospering and truth has fallen. And then in verse 15, we read this. So truth fails, and he who departs from evil makes himself a prey. Then the Lord saw it, and he was displeased, and it displeased him that there was no justice. And so understand what happens. It's inevitable. And I shared this not that long ago. But when the spirit of Antichrist rises up, those who want to hold the line, those who will not compromise, they're going to keep the commandments. They're going to confess the name of Jesus before the world. They're going to make themselves prey. And that generation, they're going to become victims. This is a reality. Biblically speaking, that when you see the rise of the Antichrist and his power ascend and him being given great authority and oppression starts to go out en masse, you know there's going to be deliverance around the corner because the devil knows he has a short time.
Hey there, this is Mike at Corner Fringe Ministries. Thanks for watching our video. If you liked the video or it encouraged you, do us a favor. Hit the like button. Don't forget to hit the share. And if you haven't done so already, please hit the subscribe button. Now, if you want to watch the rest of this video, hit the button here. And if you want to watch the rest of this series, you can check it out here. And don't forget, you can download the Corner Fringe Ministries app today on any of your Play stores. Thanks for joining us at Corner Fringe Ministries.